So I feel like it's going to be more of the same for the instant bans, like both the Elsa likely to be getting the boot, and then likely the Gambit alongside it as well.
We'll be heading into the draft, starting us off in game number 1 of Crownfall versus RAD. Take it away, Ryan and Moxie.
I think another thing for like Crownfall that we saw a lot of in MRC that we haven't seen here is just the character that's actually been banned out straight away. We haven't got to see Dabby play on Gambit, and he had a lot of good moments. He's a very aggressive, like, duelist player, but the fact that both these teams have taken out Gambit first, not too surprising. Well, I guess for, like, RAD wanted the one-sided aspect of it, so we do get to see them play Elsa, which they didn't have to worry about yesterday.
Yeah, well, Crownfall might potentially get something one-sided themselves, that being the Vanguard Deadpool, if they want to lean into it, as it will be an Elsa Bloodstone mirror match for both of these teams. RAD seeing that, okay, you're not saving Wade Wilson, they'll take it out, as it looks like it's going to be Crownfall removing the Daredevil, RAD also getting to ban at the same time. They don't get to react to what Crownfall have banned instead. This is a full, okay, this is what we're banning, we have to lock it in moment, and you can see, like, RAD, they're taking their time with it, and it will be that Mantis. So Crownfall lose a huge proponent of both a triple strategist line, but also since Loki has made it through the field, they also lose access to the Loki and the Groot team up.
Visible Woman is going to be protected for Dabby. That's not too surprising, really. It seems to be if he can't get Gambit, they want to get that instead. So the draft isn't too surprising for Crownfall. It's very similar. It's that RAD just don't have access to the Gambit and the Deadpool Vanguard. They still do have access to the Mantis unless it's a final ban for Crownfall. And Loki. It's kind of like choose one or the other in some of these cases. And RAD had access to both of them yesterday, looking to see if there's any other isolated players that they want to take out. They want to make it a choice between a one-sided Loki or a one-sided Mantis.
Oh, yeah, that Loki into Mantis save. Wow, that's forcing Crownfall's hand, especially with Ducky on the Groot. But it looks like they're actually, instead of taking out the Loki at the same time as RAD, going to go after the Invisible Woman instead. So potentially they actually want RAD to play that Loki Mantis Groot composition, and they can play to target it out, because, like, Groot is a very strong Vanguard, but he is also just walking ultimate charge, and he's very vulnerable to certain hard counters like the Wolverine, which we're currently seeing MJD actually swap onto, with FHDC taking the reins of Elsa Bloodstone instead.
So the first part of this draft, just trying to keep it as even as possible. For Crownfall, a lot to prove. They were a team that surprised many with qualifying through the MRC. RAD absolutely blitzed their way through the top part, only dropping a couple of maps against Lunex. Crownfall actually beating Lunex to be that third and final team to qualify. I think if there's players to look at, I think Ayanokoji had some really good moments playing like the other strategist alongside Dabby yesterday, but was often overshined, I think, from like Kyubi on Vision yesterday. For RAD, I think it is just that flexibility. Certainly Crazy Kitty is able to play well on the duelist, but just the backline too, like Vertigo Mash playing on chopped together alongside Crazy Kitty. Ash said it yesterday. That's what they built around with RAD, that backline.
And I mean, Crazy Kitty, we talked about it literally before the game started. I said you might see it on Convergence. We're getting to see it right now. RAD got the Mantis frozen. Not only are they playing with the Groot, they're also putting Crazy Kitty on a triple strategist line of that Ultron, getting to fly up in the sky and being impossible for Rosa to be able to target on that Venom. As Mash with the damage boost as well is going to turn Smashnaz in this 1v1 into an unfair advantage. Dive hits on first, but Rosa takes so much damage, instantly has to back out to get stabilized to the team, because as we talked about, this is a fully pocketed Elsa Bloodstone, not just with the Mantis but with the Ultron drone too.
Well, she's not afraid to get offensive. She could just slot into any composition, so Ryder wanted to use it as offensively as possible. It's the Smashnaz bullying his teammate of FaZe way back with Rosa. He's been forced to retreat for a second, but both teams try to contest the objective. The dive coming in, but there's not really too much else to follow it. It's the leap in, the swing away, just make sure that the backline has to be pushed back a little bit more, but FHD is the first to go down. Vertigo's able to take him out, and the catch into the air means that Crownfall's dive is a bit more bunkered up, and Ducky is not too far away from having a strangling prison. In fact, it's the faster ultimate that's been building on this side, even getting past Crazy Kitty. First team fight won for RAD, and they've built up a lot and forced Crownfall back.
Yeah, the fellow grabs up Lugia Goat, but I mean, it's Hulk. So literally, Rad just pile on top of their own Vanguard. Everyone receives the Unbreakable Resolve, and then they break a Boohoo with the Exile to make sure that even with the Strange still touching, Rad pull a magic trick over the Sorcerer Supreme and cap the point with his presence still in that lobby. Ayanokoji does have the Eternal Bond to set Crimeful up to walk forward, but Smashnez is just going to go first with the Apex Predator. You've got the dashes, you can actually lead the path of the Glartrox with them, so no one has fallen yet, but Rad still have the greatest sustainability in the form of both the Rage of Ultron as well as the Strangling Prison, which I believe actually got faded through.
Yeah, Mash got pulled in from the Glartrox. He was almost able to get up. FHD is going to finish the job of the creatures, and the Invisible Boundary is going to mask a little bit of space here. Lugia go bringing out the ultimate, going in for the slam, and the Eye of Agamotto for a Boohoo. I don't know if it connects onto many, but it's certainly not going to follow through onto any eliminations, just because you have the fate of both worlds from Vertigo. Means that all of the strategists have been forced to use these ultimates. Mash has got the Soul Resurgence in hand, but it's not really needed. This fight for Crownfall is spread, and whilst it might be getting picks and have bodies on the point to fight it, there's no chance for them to be able to actually take it. It's 2/3 progression already made from Rad, and another pick onto a Boohoo to stall.
I mean, Smashnez is about to get a second Apex Predator up. You're getting to see how much damage this Elsa can do, but Crazy Kitty's also untouchable. Like, this Ultron is receiving the Idol Aura Snowflake from Vertigo, has not fallen so far, is undiveable, so MJD's actually off of the Wolverine since you're just not getting value grabbing at the Vanguard, so you can't get close enough. Instead, he goes over to the Bucky, the Winter Soldier, to be able to put pressure on both the Flyers, but also potentially hook someone out of position and allow Crimefall to open up the fight with an elimination.
It's pulled from the Apex Predator, and it's pulled Boohoo out. He just got back. And he's out again straight away. Rosa now needs to be the one that dives in as the solo Vanguard for now. FHD does have his own Apex Predator, but Rosa goes down before the Feast of the Abyss can be used. Crownfall just neither in or out throughout the entirety of that point makes it easy for Rad, a skirmish at best.
I mean, Rad just had so much damage that every time Rosa tries to go in on that Venom, even if the attempt was to soft dive, there was no option of being able to soft dive and retain your health, but it was just gone within seconds. Then you had to stabilize the Venom. Rad are just able to push Smashnez forward, forge for more space, manage to find an elimination in the downtime when the Venom's not looking at the backline, and push for more. And Crimefall, without that Venom, creating those opportunities for the rest of the team. Like, what is your next engagement? It can't be Strange, because you're going to be coming under so much pressure from both the Mantis, the Luna, the Ultron, the Hulk, the Elsa. Like, the problems just did not end.
Too many bodies, too much of a stressful time. Ducky so close to having a Strangling Prison too means that, like, Rad have quite a lot. I'm ignoring, obviously, the Bruce Banner ultimate. We'll see exactly whether Hulk can sort of bring it together. But he does actually have the ultimate too, which is very fastly built up. In fact, Rad seemed to be actually very good at making these old generations work at a Boohoo, going for the portal play to begin with.
I don't know how successful this is going to be, though, because, like, you can do this when Rad don't have strategist ultimates. Like, Mash is okay with just popping Soul Resurgence and running at them. It feels more a case of, like, use Portal just so that you can disguise your rotation and try and get into a position to close up the distance. But Strangling Prison comes on through, not blocked by the Strange Shield. Ayanokoji tries to heal the team with the Eternal Bomb, but there's just too much incoming damage. They find the eliminations through the Bond, and Crimefall is still trying to win this one. A clutch attempted with the Apex Predator, just looking to grab them off of that cliffside. But, I mean, it picks up one person. The rest of Rad can still cap.
Oh, it seems that they're going to be switching the characters, at least, like Rosa using the Feast of the Abyss so they can go over towards Angela. Ayanokoji not afraid to go away from the Cloak and Dagger towards the Jeff, which on this point is pretty good. FHD, like, not going to be switching off of it. Also, you build in your whole composition around it, and it can play with literally everything. MJD, however, does have a Kraken's Impact switched over to it away from the Wolverine a little bit earlier on the first point. But Rad taking full control. You have got the Rage of Ultron being used, a great ultimate to just keep buying a bit more time, and with how quickly it still builds up despite the nerfs, it means that it's going to be ready very quickly, as is everything with Rad with these ultimate generations.
Potentially a forced Invisible Boundary, but Crimefall are able to kite out of it, hold on to Invisible Boundary to try to use to catch the path of the Glartrox, as we do get a huge Eye of Agamotto actually coming on through from a Boohoo, forcing Vertigo's hand into using Fate of Blow 4 to try to keep the team up. MJD will wait for that one to be done before coming on through with the Kraken Impact, but unfortunately it doesn't actually impact anyone on the team, and Crimefall yet again lose what should have been an engagement option. Out comes the Apex Predator trying to grab up two, but the Hulk manages to come out with the Unbreakable Resolve once the Guatrox is broken, and Rad recover flawlessly.
I mean, I haven't really had to stress too much with how these fights have gone in. Now it's just pushing back this approach from Crownfall. And bear in mind, Abuhu did go for a portal play first, so with how quickly Rad are taking this, there might not be a chance to actually contest this as Doctor Strange if it keeps going at this rate.
Ducky tried. He tried to build the walls up, potentially put himself up to parkour and be above the choke with Strangling Prism and Crownfall least expected. But the walls, they're not able to line up. Rage of Ultron does line up, syncing with Crownfall's engagement. Out comes the Strangling Prism when they're all kiting away from the Ultron, and Rad follow up with the damage. Smashner's uncleared on the off angle. This is just a panic. It's Jeff from Ayana Koji looking to get past the team of Rad and potentially go on to the point for an overtime activation, but it is not to be. And Rad, there's a reason that we talk about this team being up there in terms of the standings for Group B. They looked absolutely seamless in both rounds of the domination.
And dominations today have been dominating for the team that's won. I think there was 3 eliminations against Na'Vi. I'm really curious to see how many eliminations went up against Rad on this one, because 1 for Ducky as he was 15-1. I can't imagine that there's more than 5 potentially. It's count them up.
1, 2, 3. Yeah, and I mean, it's a real problem when Smashnez on the Elsa is one of those who does not go down, because that means that you're playing at maximum levels of instincts. Oh boy, are you getting a lot of extra health, mobility, and instant access to some of your most damaging abilities. Crazy Kitty 2 on the Ultron, like, we have to talk about the fact that this is an Ultron, right? As part of a flying composition, you should be vulnerable when you can't play around cover. The fact that Crazy Kitty did not go down once speaks volumes to the access of space that Crownfall had, as they just were not able to get past anything on the front line to successfully pressure the back.
And the almost out-damaged MJD, who was 0-3, moved up to Bucky, played a bit of Wolverine. It just felt like a miss completely. Rad, we saw how much freedom they had with a draft yesterday. Here it was a little bit more of those bigger characters were taken out, yet still Rad adjusting to work with a triple strategist. They've got the perfect team for it, but also having Elsa to just slot in. What on earth do you do with a draft to stop these characters from going through? Because Rad are just looking way too good with the compositions that they're running.
I don't have the answer to those questions. It's their opponents that are going to have to figure those out, and there's still a couple more to have, as once again, Rad currently have a couple games in hand. They did not play on Monday. They are currently sitting at 2-0, up at the top of the table, along with Na'Vi, but Na'Vi are playing later today, so it's going to be equally as difficult. What a setup. What a great start for us here, but overall, we have some frontrunners appearing at the top of the table, and they're kind of looking like what we were thinking. I think our producer just told us we're going to be heading to a break, so we're going to jump on into that to get set up for map number 2.
I'm trying to help.
Lights out. Suffer in the darkness. Let's pop back up under their noses. Us against the world!
My time to shine.
I apologize for misspeak earlier, saying that RAD are currently 2-0. It was the map that was 2-0. But right now, they're looking like this could be a solid 2-0 as they are continuing their dominant run. Meaning it's up to Crownfall to try and adjust this, and they've decided to take us to Midtown, Moxie. Why, though?
I mean, are we surprised? This is literally what Crownfall have turned to in each of their series, and they looked much better on it the second time, rather than that first. Like, they improved significantly, being able to stall vision out and actually manage to bring to second a hold, as well as getting a really good stall for overtime on first as well. I'm a little bit concerned about the fact like they're going to Midtown against a team that hasn't really been playing dive against them, because Midtown normally is the turn that you take to convoy when you're up against a dive team, because it's the least easy map to be able to dive in the pool that we have access to. RAD's just kind of beating them with a high damage output. Triple strat lines to be able to survive the soft dive, understanding that it has no elimination potential, melt the venom down, and then turn your attention to the rest of the team core when they have no space to work with. Like, you're still going to face the same problems unless you fix your ban draft.
And with that knowledge, Ryan, with that knowledge and with that challenge set down, what would you like to see them adjust in this ban draft that's coming up?
I think for the ban draft, it really is just trying to limit as much as you can of like triple strategist, because that is obviously very good on this point as well. Triple vanguard, triple strategist, not as popular on like the defense, for example, but still being played in bits and pieces by some of the teams. And certainly Adam is finding like a lot of value in the hands of Crownfall when it matters. I think overall, just composition-wise, the way that they're playing is just being a little bit more clinical in how they end these fights, because RAD have the ability to be scrappy. They've had so much experience playing at that kind of level that Crownfall, if they have the advantage, they have to make it count. Otherwise, RAD are just going to be able to win 5 versus 6s, especially if they're good at coordinating ults.
Even a loss here would not mean Crownfall are out. It is possible to go through to the playoffs after losing 3 games, but it's going to be extremely difficult. So this is Crownfall's best chance to get themselves back in with a chance. I'm sending it over to our casters, Ryan and Moxie, to take us into map number 2.
Same as always. I mean, for RAD, it's like they know that Crownfall are going to try and go for this style, with just like the Gambit first, trying to get a one-sided Elsa. RAD don't want to let that happen. So it looks like the first part of this draft, Moxie, is going to be exactly the same as it was over on Krakoa.
Yeah, expect this to be an Elsa save as well, since you have to just be able to match what exactly Smashnaz has been doing. But, like, for sure, at some point, there has to be a ban out onto maybe the Loki, maybe the Mantis, if you're worried about a triple strategist or an Atom composition making its way through. As RAD now will be taking out the Mantis, Crownfall not falling into the pitfall trap that they did on Domination, also already looking like they're about to lock that Mantis as well. So as we said, right, it's not a case of take them to a map, don't worry about the composition RAD played previously. No, you actually have to adjust your ban draft the way that we're seeing here to make sure that what happened on Domination is not repeated on Convoy.
So now it's really a question of, like, because it was the Daredevil that they banned out, if there's going to be any changes really on the side of RAD. Like, they're going to actually protect the Loki, make sure that they have something to like work alongside. And really, it's not even just a case of like, yeah, you could do it with the Gambit. Gambit's not available, but Cloak and Dagger, the obvious like Adam copy, you could still do. Invisible Woman is still in the pool. There's still plenty to work with, and Cloak and Dagger is the choice for RAD to take out.
Oh, Loki save as well coming through from RAD. I was going to say, like, this is why Crownfall took us to Midtown. They ban out the Mantis because Daredevil now getting through the ban draft is nowhere near as problematic as, say, somewhere like Spider Islands instead. As Crownfall looks like they will return the favor, so no team is going to have access to the Eternal Bond, the Terror Cape, the Dark Teleportation, as well as all of the additional AoE healing that a Cloak and Dagger can bring to a stacked up team, brawling out in small rooms or on main.
Draft is completely mirrored, so it's almost as if we're playing MRC again for our 2 MRC qualifying teams. There's not going to be any one-sided characters above these teams wanting to try and beat out each other just on the same choice of characters, on just basically pound for pound strength alone.
Yeah, but I mean, Crownville have been playing a lot more Emma than I think a lot of people were expecting, given the fact that Emma does get outpaced by dive compositions fairly easily. But on Convoy, she can still find strength, managing to prevent rushdowns, and also having things like the Diamond Form and Carbon Crush when the actual attention is turned to the point itself to be able to continue trying to move it along. No surprises too that Crownville, like you said, going for that Loki save, will also be able to get the Adam Warlock composition through, so potentially 2 casts of Karmic Revival, maybe 2 casts of Invisible Boundary, as they're going to look to slowly wear Rad down, not necessarily for a full hold, but just to take them out of as much time as they possibly can before we move to the other parts of the map.
Another player to look at whilst he's playing the group. This time it was banned out the last time that Crownfall played Vision on this map. Abuhu Strange is also very good, not only for pole plays, but just playing it in and out of those moments. Crazy Kitty, seeing if he's going to be actually the one that's going to roll with the Duelist as the 2-2 setup is going to come in for Rad. Very aggressive, and even seeing Lugia move over to the Emma is going to provide a lot of respect on the side of Crownfall. They don't want to get too close to the camera crush.
Well, I mean, Rad also have way more wall break, and Crownfall have to respect that, right? Regeneration Domain is already forced on the hands of the defense because not only is there more wall break, there's also more incoming damage from both the Elsa and that Punisher, and it should be shown in terms of the Strategist ult charge, but Crownfall running triple Strategist lines are actually cannibalizing each other's ultimate economies, allowing Mash to keep pace, and this is really dangerous. Crownfall are not going to be near a Strategist ultimate to slam into Rad aggressively, and they're having to give up space because they're taking too much damage and having to pull back to try to stabilize.
And it means that like FHD, just halfway to building up the Karmic Revival, is going to be under a little bit more stress. Ayana Koji might be able to actually pip him to the post and grab it beforehand if it's needed, but an Invisible Boundary for Dabby is going to be relied on. You lose another Vanguard, though, and Rosa is taking an absolute truck ton of damages. The payload is going to move past the ambulance. Invisible Boundary forced out on both sides to try and keep it an even fight, which only naturally leads towards Rad. You've got the Invisible Boundary used on the defensive Crownfall, and then a Final Judgment in hand for Smash Bears, whilst the copy comes in for another Invisible Boundaries for both teams to go on top of it. With all of this stacked on top of each other, Crownfall are doing well to not buckle under the pressure, but it has forced out a pretty early Karmic Revival. It's going to bring back Rosa, and now you've got the Silent Seduction about to catch a couple more players that are going to be immediately brought back. But it's still like just bodies on the point for Crownfall. Meteor Air might be able to force back the attackers for second. Great shot onto Smash Des, and the Strangler Prison for Rad might be actually the turnaround that they need. Crownfall actually holding on for dear life, but it doesn't seem to be enough. The Emma's clearing up the space. There's too many group walls for these teams to rely on, and Crownfall had everything. They used everything, and it still wasn't enough.
I mean, Lugia Goat with the Diamond Form just goes into the Strangling Prison. Ducky sets against the backline, sees that the Vanguards are brawling the rest of Rad's whole team, not there to block the Grid ultimate, and catches everybody out, so away goes the sustain. Now we head into second as well. Away goes the Adam composition. FHDC onto the Punisher, MJD the Alpha to be able to match the damage output of Rad's composition, which was so problematic for the defense to deal with.
Rad now with 4 minutes on the clock, so it's pretty much back to where they started. It's a good fight actually for Crownfall to try and pull back some of the space, try to form crossfires, but it also means the players isolated. Smash Des on the Punisher has found so much value here with all of these walls. They're not going to be too long for this world. Reach end domain, almost just used offensively. Rad are not afraid to dedicate the most important bits of utility to just really put their foot down on the necks of Crownfall to make sure that it's going to fall to pieces. It's just this tempo of Rad, the rotation of ultimates absolutely barreling through. It's going to force a Strangling Prison from Abuhu, but there's nobody nearby for Crownfall. They're all separated by this Invisible Boundary. They're all being picked off one at a time, and this is looking to cook its way through the second checkpoint, unless there's a potential portal play.
I mean, Crownfall could rely potentially on Ayana Koji with the one-sided God of Mischief to copy into an Invisible Boundary, but that's just going to activate Crazy Kitty with the Apex Predator being that trap card. And it looks like actually Crownfall, they're just being cleared off any opportunity. Oh no, the force physics. And Crazy Kitty still able to come on through with the Apex Predator, grabbing everyone from Crownfall, forcing Ayana Koji into using God of Mischief when they've already lost one. Make that 2 players through the Boundary's heal potential. Things are going from bad to worse as Crownfall are losing ultimate economy, players late, and that's going to translate into all of the free map space for Rad to take when they move into third. Look at how far ahead they can already afford to be.
I feel like I'm watching Chopped again, prime Chopped at the end of stage 2 of last year with just ultimate like rotations, right? Just how RAD are not afraid to use weird timings of like, oh, we got the checkpoint. Let's use 2 ultimates because we know that we've got plenty of time to build them up again, but also we're going to force that stuff for Crownfall so they have less. And Crownfall just a complete disarray. They've switched over towards the Punisher themselves for a final judgment, final HD. It's not going to have much space to work with, and a Meteor M is going to be forced out, looking to maybe go towards the Emma, but the barrier is going to mean it's not going to catch on to much. He goes in the other direction, does Rosa. Now he's trying to get onto this objective, but you can see just how these big walls from Ducky are completely making this a tough fight for Crownfall. They're not even using the high ground because they're that focused on touching the point and stopping it from moving.
I mean, Crownfall, though, they've held on to the final judgment, waiting for Darby to have invisible boundary to pocket FHDC through the duration of it. This might be the turning point, but RAD, they're just taking cover away from where the Punisher can come through, rounds the corner, now starts being able to connect the damage onto the bodies. Crazy Kitty tries to turn the fight actually with the Apex Predator. Boohoo spots everyone out of position with the Strangling Prison, catching the attempt to disengage, and that's RAD being chased all the way back into that respawn point, but Crownfall still have to be very wary they don't bite off more than they can chew, as they're still missing Ayana Koji on that Loki, and they cannot afford to lose a player late.
There's a lot more, like, open ultimates, actually, as it's going to be MJD using the Apex Predator. Doesn't get much, but it forces that Strangling Prison from Ducky. You have got both of the Lokis having these ultimates, so it's going to be the copies of the Invisible Boundaries up, and if you smash this, you sat there waiting. You know that Invisible Boundary wasn't used too long ago from Dabby. He's built it up to 2/3, so there is a window here if they want to go more offensive. The fact is, though, that this is maybe an overextension from Crownfall. They want to try and hold this choke and force out these ultimates. RAD hoping to maybe just find a pick into the neutral. FHD's taking a chunk of damage, but there's a copy from Mash, seeing if he wants to go for something a little bit more offensive, seeing if he can plant the Invisible Boundary a little bit deeper and later, and it's right on the objective as the final judgment actually was shut down from FHD. He makes sure that nothing else can be said from Punisher.
I mean, potentially RAD still able to turn this, though, as they have double strategist ultimates ready to go. Mash uses Invisible Boundary first. Vertigo could potentially hold for second, but like you said, getting the shutdown on that final judgment is crucial on the side of Crownfall because it allows them to win the fight with only Darby's Invisible Boundary. It does mean that FHDC with his own final judgment will not have anything outside of Regeneration Domain to pocket its duration, but I mean, if you're Crownfall, you might even actually overlap Rosa's Meteor Am to absorb the damage coming that Punisher's way. They've also been able to burn a lot of time off of the bank of RAD's economy as MJD gets too close to that force physics. Oh my goodness, this Elsa's health is on an absolute roller coaster as we get the Apex Predator finally being sent in, but blocked off by some pretty good Groot walls, so that only now does Ducky fall. The rest of the team with the Regeneration Domain can actually kite out of the position they got grabbed and keep their players intact.
1 minute left for RAD to push this to the end, which Virtus Pro were able to do it in overtime. Smash, they're switching over towards the Phoenix. Some more verticality might be able to find stuff, and it means that Ayana Koji can't get away with much, and these walls are going to be cleared out of house as much as they can. Set is seduction, really good at creating space. Strangling Prison going to be used alongside this final hit from Hev HD, but the Invisible Boundary is going to protect. It's just a cleave. You know roughly where they're going to be stuck and where they're going to be playing from, but no elimination is going to come in off of the back of it. The Rosa potentially might be holding on to the ultimate to see if he can slam down on any more aggressive plays. Doesn't need to worry about the Punisher ultimate on the side of RAD anymore. But now it's whether Crazy Kitty, now that he has this Apex Predator in hand, if he can catch people off, most certainly for Crownfall, can you do better in his overtime fights? Because it's looming, it's about to hit. You've got the copy over from Loki that's going to put down an Invisible Boundary into this engagement, and Dabby is waiting to use his straight afterwards. They know it's a case of pace. Meteor M is going to be used alongside an Invisible Boundary put on the point to allow RAD to fight this a little bit more. You got Ensog Inferno used to try to slam down, see if he can catch anybody in the backline, but it doesn't connect. Rosa is going to go pretty low, has to use the Bulwark on himself to protect him, but he loses FHD in the process. Visible Boundary from Dabby is now going to be used. MJD is very close to having an Apex Predator, but everybody in and around him is starting to drop. RAD don't have the ultimate, and overtime seems to be a curse for Crownfall. There's so much wick left as Ayana Cody's going to go down. A regroup is needed.
MJD with Apex Predator, I mean, you don't have the time for that regroup. Rad have everyone on the point to get as much speed as possible. You're just going to have to send someone onto the point as the sacrifice. Rosa goes, gets walled off, so no healing line of sight. There's the Apex Predator that you were trying to wear out for, but unfortunately it's Vanguards that you pick up, not Squishy, so no easy eliminations off the back of it. Vertigo of the Invisible Boundary, Lugia as well. The Psionic Seduction means that, yeah, everyone from Crownfall, no one who was still up was able to keep their presence on the point, and Rad in overtime are able to close up Midtown.
No, they didn't. It was right at the end. It was Rad that got
Oh,
off of it.
wait, no, they got off one? Oh,
yeah. Rad.
No.
It looked like they had the advantage, and maybe just Crownfall, just things leaning their way for once. But it's the same again. Like, maybe it moves like 20 more meters, but these overtime fights for Crownfall, I like how they sort of set themselves up of like, okay, we're going to need the Loki ultimate and the Invisible Woman ultimate. Like, we're ready to use them in tandem. Really well played from Ayana, Koji, and Dabi to do that. But it's like the offensive capabilities were missing there to an extent. It was just that MJD had a really good Apex Predator ultimate to catch Rad out, and just in coordination, managed to get off, but they effectively finished the map.
I mean, Rad, though, look at this composition. They're looking to stall. Oh, we have the Adam, we have the Loki, we have the Invisible Woman, pretty much everything that Crownfall did. Something to talk about as well is that Rad did such a good job of denying FHDC on this Punisher any strategist ultimate to better give strength to the Final Judgment, right? Final Judgment is such a risky ultimate for a Punisher to use because of just how much of a target you become when you're burning it. And as a matter of fact, we get to see like entire metas develop around things like a strategist ultimate being used to guarantee the Punisher's survival through it. So Rad constantly forcing Ayana, Koji, and Dabi into burning ultimates meant that FHDC's ults were far more comfortable or uncomfortable than he was probably hoping. As we now get Crownfall getting to melt down the group walls, FHDC on the Punisher, MJD the Elsa. Can they do what Rad were able to start taking advantage of, having all of that incoming damage to push Crownfall all the way back? No, Rad actually with the Soul Bond are able to mitigate a lot of the incoming poke by just hiding around the actual walls that the map provides.
Well, FHD switched over to Moon Knight, though, so a well-placed hand of Conchu might make this more uncomfortable for Rad than they were necessarily hoping. Nobody has been eliminated yet, but there's been a couple of close calls already as these ultimates are tanking up at a good rate. Certainly Crazy Kitty already having 2/3 of his ultimate, but is forced out with a Life Cocoon as FHD is one target that he's focusing, and he's managed to grab him. Maybe hunting down where this Life Cocoon is going to go, and now with that hand of Conchu in position, the fact that it's now spread out into the main streets means it's going to be a bit harder to nail this down. Abuhu lacking behind slightly with the Strangling Prison, but it is just a case that Crownfall have built these other ultimates, most certainly the Strategist ultimates very quickly. Really like this Invisible Boundary to go more offensive, but the Apex Predator looking to try and clear people out. The walls trying to keep them out of their own teammates' ult as they're both being copied and stacked on top of each other. FHD, if there's a hand of Conchu, there's a good moment to use it, but you don't want Rad to keep building up these ults.
I mean, the second use of that Invisible Boundary actually forces Matt into using the Adam copy now coming through to bring everyone from Rad back. MJD's been dealt with as well. Crownfall have nothing to be able to find the eliminations after that first res, which means Crazy Kitty will be able to hold on to his own Karmic Revival. Ducky as well trying to catch the disengagement of Crownfall with that Strangling Prison. Forces out the Regeneration Domain because Crownfall are still brawling on the objective. They don't want to give up all of this map space by pulling all the way back. Meteor M allows Rosa to round the corner, potentially take Smashnez out of the fight and force Crazy Kitty finally into parting with the Karmic Revival to bring a crucial aspect of the composition back. And there it is, Adam ultimate invested. Rad having to get bodies back onto the cart to make sure the Crownfall don't just push it in the checkpoint when there's no contest.
Oh, they do? Oh, no, they actually do. They just slot it in. So Rad, like, it seemed pretty much well set up from Mash that he was able to get the copy of the Karmic Revival for one, and then Crazy Kitty could just sit back with it. The problem is that Rad sat back a little bit too much, and now so this fight is just turned into a little bit of a doom match. I think that Rad have managed to win out, but because of where the spawns have shifted, they do have to give up some of the space.
I mean, yeah, it would have been walls coming through from Abuhu then to interfere with how Rad were able to position and bounce their players onto that point. The reason why Vertigo invested the Invisible Boundary is literally so that Rad get space back. They now control all of these off angles. They can play Mash super far back without having to worry about Crownfall putting pressure on both the front line and the back, as we get a very aggressive Apex Predator trying to grab the players out of position, followed up by a very aggressive Invisible Boundary Strangling Prison combination coming through from Crownfall's side. as they try and catch first with the Groot ultimate and then with the slow on top of it. But Rad had already disengaged away, and that's Crownfall now out of 2 ultimates and having to rely on Ayano Koji to match Mashes.
Soul Bomb was used, but that's the only real thing that you dedicated out. I do like these offensive ultimates from Dabby. He's usually on the gambit, but the Invisible Woman is looking a lot more fearsome today. It's the way that Crownfall are trying to keep up with pace with Rad, but it's those offensive capabilities. Even if they do come through, you have now another copy of the Kamet Revival from Mash. Crazy Kitty's about to build up another one. Apex Predator's going to catch a few more, but I imagine that Crazy Kitty is maybe just going to pull this ultimate out straight away, or maybe they just feel like Ducky is the other one that's going to go down. No, they want to make sure that he's back. Crownfall are thinking, how many of these ultimates do they seem to have? They have a Meteor M that's almost being built up from Rosa, but now you're looking at FHD 30% away, MJD 20% away from these ultimates. They have so much to worry about.
Vertigo! Crazy Kitty's actually able to find the angle, which allows Vertigo to come into res distance, which allows Invisible Boundary to be brought back into the fight. This is why he went for the res. He wanted to allow Rad the opportunity to hold in Subway before Crownfall could find that second checkpoint. Strangling Prison comes on through, but there's no follow-up of Hand of Conscience, which means that Vertigo's ultimate, it's enough alongside the Soul Bond to keep Rad in this fight. And Dabby has to use Invisible Boundary to be able to match and allow Crownfall to hold on. We now have a race between the 2 Lokis to see who hits that strategist ultimate first, and if it's enough to finally finish off the fight on one end.
Yeah, Rad need to be careful with it. They'll get pushed off the point for a 3rd time from this team and bullied away. Mash is going to go for the copy, and a Strangling Prison on top of it too. There's so many players buckled up that are trying to pancake each other's sustenance, but it's not going to be enough. You don't really need too much else in the end as Crownfall are sent back to spawn. Built up their own like God of Mischief and also another Apex Predator, but now Rad actually have some freedom to move forward and hold this.
Yeah, they've got the high ground hold, and Crownfall, they're short on time. Like, this is the 7th enemy in the lobby for Crownfall to have to face down right now. Not only are they going to get held at choke and potentially have to part of one of their ultimates before they can even get onto the convoy itself, the more time they take, the closer Crazy Kitty is going to be to hitting Karmic Revival, and no one from Crownfall can part from the fight to mark the Adams position down. Apex Predator from Smashness as Rad read out the same rotation Crownfall tried to make yesterday when they played Midtown, and this is all going wrong. It's a reliance on the Strange Portal just to get through the choke. At least you've got an Invisible Boundary to be able to stabilize it off of Ayano Koji's copy, but I mean, Rad, they've read out. They've been able to hit tab. They can see that there's a Strange in the lobby, and they're just gonna swap their rotation to make sure that they're there to meet up.
We've also got the copy of the God of Mischief, so an Invisible Boundary can be slammed down if it's needed. So this is a good hold. It's an interesting question to be asking Rad at this point. And Abuhu, it's not just the portal. He can make the Strange work like we said at the start of the map. Crownfall have a lot of ultimates here, but this objective isn't moving. The spawns are flipped, and it's an uncomfortable spot. It's going to force these domains out from Ayano Koji. And there's the copy after he comes in for the Invisible Boundary. MJD also using the Apex Predator. It's another res for Crazy Kitty. I don't know if Mash is going to feel the need to have to use it depending on how this next fight goes, as there's no Strangling Prison left in the server. These Meteor M's haven't been connecting on the side of Crownfall, but they connected there for Lugia. See if there's going to be a pick onto the other side, certainly off the back of the eye of Agamotto. A perfect combination, but a camera revival again from Mash. It's just dirty from Rad that they're able to actually get these many resurrections out and through. Crownfall now, overtime is stacked against them as they're trying to push past the second checkpoint, but they are finding eliminations. There's 3 players still left on Rad on this point. They are finding the eliminations and picks. There's no more portal. There's no more chance for Crownfall to be able to touch. And Rad taking out this series if they can get some of these players that are leaping in for hope. Even a Glortrox is thrown in just to see if it can catch them. Rad taking this series 2-0, and Crownfall, a promise but not enough to go against Rad, who looked amazing today.
Oh, you can feel the desperation. You can absolutely feel the desperation. We might not be in the comms, we might not be able to listen to the players, but like that Eye of Agamotto Meteor M combination was them desperately trying to get the elimination onto the Adam Warlock before there was an opportunity for that God of Mischief copy to go through. Like, if they found it, if they denied Loki the line of sight and mashed the God of Mischief copy onto Crazy Kitty, maybe they get the second checkpoint, but they're just not able to find it in time. Mash completes the God of Mischief animation, gets the second cast of Karmic Revival in the fight, and as we talked about, it's overtime. Crownfall have no one spare to be able to go mark out where that Karmic Revival will be coming from, and as a result, no one to be able to clean up and prevent everyone from Rad piling back into the fight.
I mean, it was an interesting map because we do have these identical ban protect screens up for both teams. So it was kind of like MRC. It was both teams had access to the same kind of compositions. But both teams were adjusting pretty much at the same time. Very familiar in how they're playing. Maybe they scrimmed a lot against each other leading up to MRC because they were on opposite sides of the brackets. Hard to get a gauge. But for Crownfall, I think it's just pound for pound outbeaten. Like in previous performances, it's like, yeah, this team maybe has a little bit more experience than you. It's like, no, you're playing up against players from Chopped, Final Dance, FaZe. These are teams that are like used to surpassing what their expectations are. And it's no surprise that RAD have picked them up. And this is a result that you would expect to see from them. It's just that they are cabin for a very good looking Crownfall.
They really are. They're setting themselves up at the top of the table here. There are now 3 teams in this group sitting at 2-0s at the top of their table. It's a fantastic position to be in. But Crownfall, they're not out. Once again, it is mathematically possible for them to make their way through here. But they're sitting at 0-3 right now. They now have a little bit of time. They, of course, as that's their last game of this week, they can now go away, try and scrim people from the other group, like you were suggesting they probably did in MRC, Ryan, to try and work their way up, because it's not an easy journey from here to make it out the group. It's basically going to be 3 teams fighting over 1 spot.
And it's such a competitive group as well. And some of them are looking better and better as they go along, at least in some of those elements that I was saying about like overtime. You know, for example, RAD actually getting to the end of that map would have been like, oh yeah, more of the same against Crownfall, but they're able to hold on. A couple of mistakes from RAD there, I guess, with like touching the point on defense first and then actually getting off of the objective at the end of the map. But it is because like Crownfall are forcing some good mistakes. And I think that strat backline did relatively well. It's just, what do you do against Loki Adam, really, when there was like 16, 17 resurrections on that defense? It was crazy.
It honestly felt like we were watching a Winter Soldier with the amount of times we were hearing again. It just was prefaced by Born this time, just from the amount of times they brought him back. And I love that you spotted that, Moxie, of just the positioning of Crazy Kitty, seeing that Vertigo was taken down on the high ground further into the map. So instead of trying to charge up the ramp and round the corner to try and
deeper into subway tunnel,
deeper into the subway, into the changing rooms down there. Absolutely magnificent positioning by RAD. Well deserved place for them to find themselves right now, sitting at the top of the table with Vision and Virtus Pro, which they will have to play against. That is going to be some of their next week games, so they're not out of the woods yet.
I mean, that's going to be a great match, though, for sure.
Oh, for sure.
Like, RAD are looking on absolute fire. They're also showcasing that they can play so many different compositions. Like, we got a little bit of that triple strategist line with the Ultron Mantis, which is probably a huge part on why Crownfall were adverse to trying to take us to Convergence. Not just about, you know, the comfort levels of areas like Midtown, but as we got to see, like, RAD, even with the generation, with the nerfs to the ultimates, still able to play the Loki, still able to play the Adam, and Mash and Crazy Kitty looking just as devastating on it as ever.
We've also got to bring up the fact that Ducky just had an absolute belter that game. 39-8 with 17 final hits, the most in the game. We're actually going to be interviewing Ducky in just a moment, so that will be absolutely perfect for us. But the fact is, we've been looking at people like Ducky and Lugia Goat from all the way back in stage 1 as like potential stars of the future. And right now they are the stars of the present, because these two together are just so terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, they're sort of used to like having top 4, top 3 finishes because they were on that Zero Tenacity team back in stage 1. And sure, I think like players like Canuton were like the most like notable, I suppose. He was just the poster child of that team and some of the strategies that they had, right? But like Ducky and Lugia really showing like strong Vanguard lines in a meta that's very open with them, right? And I think the main thing is just like Crazy Kitty. Him and Layla's were like my 2 favorite players from EMEA last year. And I was like, I like watching a mechanically gifted player that's flexible, but I also love watching smart players. And we're seeing that just prove dividends for this team. He can play near enough anything that is required of them, and having that as your linchpin in the center of a squad just opens up a meta for ripe opportunities for RAD. And honestly, I think like Na'Vi, like Shikigami, some of these other teams, maybe even like Virtus Pro, like within their group, have to be a little bit scared of what RAD can do, because they are
Yeah, I mean, I feel like...
Sorry, go on.
Oh, sorry. I feel like Crazy Kitty, because you are on a roster with Tuzi, you get overlooked a lot of the time because Tuzi is like that really flashy player, right? Who's bringing in the eliminations, he's hitting those ultimates really, really quickly. But like Ryan highlighted, Crazy Kitty was just that very good presence on the side of Chopped, who was able to be flexible, but also come through with some really intelligent, smart plays and improve in such a rapid pace as well. He was, out of everyone in EMEA, in my personal opinion, the player who improved the most in the shortest amount of time. So we just get to see continuing to show that potential. He has not reached his peak still. Like, there is still a very long way that this team could potentially go, and I cannot wait to see where that journey will lead them.
I think one of the
keep
things...
it going for me here as we keep our loop of the glazing the entire team in one go here. We've covered the Vanguards, we've covered the duelists here. MASH and Vertigo. MASH in particular, we've seen a little bit more of because they actually made it to those global finals. But this backline is so good together.
Yeah, I mean, they work together so incredibly well. Vertigo as well, being able to hold the line on Invis Woman, going head-to-head against a team who, when they're playing that defense, right, those Loki copies, they're going to be going on to Adam for the Comic Revival. That means that you have to make one invisible boundary. Do the maths here, it's pretty hard. Stretch to cover both Davi's and Ayano Koji's. So the fact that Vertigo was actually able to keep pace with what Crimefall was sustaining with, while also making sure that those invisible boundaries actually prevented meaningful damage coming through, goes to show that his ultimate usage was absolutely pixel perfect.
I think that's one thing just from Rad. Like, I know it's like we're moving away from like Crazy Kitty, but he played strategist, so I'm going to go back to him real quick. It is like the thing that made his... The thing that made his Ultron so good back in stage 2 was when those ultimates came in, because it was a fast ultimate you could build up, and it was so good at like, now we go. It's like what Raging Royal Flush sort of has taken over, just it is the go time button. And so when you have this like big ultimate nerf that's hit everybody, most notably the strategists, the fact that he still finds those timings is impressive, but also a hell of a lot more impactful now than it was a couple of months ago. And even when you've got Crownfall that were doing well, really working hard to keep up to all of these invisible boundaries that were used, how aggressive Dabi and Ayano Koji were trying to be, it said a lot that Rad were still the ones that were setting the pace, not only from Crazy Kitty or the strategists, from everybody. Ult cycling was amazing from this team.
Now let's swap it over while we wait for Ducky to jump on in with us just for a little bit. Back to Crownfall. They are teetering on the edge right now. It's mathematically possible, but they have to win every single game from now on and hope that the other games go in their favor, where some other teams are able to lose 3 or more games as well. Let's start with Ryan. What would you like to see different from Crownfall going into next week's games?
I think it's they put a lot of like focus on the Elsa, which, you know, a lot of teams did. Rad did today, for example, instead of seeing like stuff like the Gambit, Vanguard, Deadpool and stuff. Like, I would want to see like them maybe not look as uniform on the draft. So you don't want it to feel like every draft you're going for the same style. Rad showed it here today. I think they made a really good point of like, okay, yeah, we showed like what happens if you open the draft up to us. This was like, okay, we're limited. This is what we're going to show. If you're the next opponent for Rad, which is Reason, you've got to prepare for all of these different styles and try to guess what, if we get rid of this instead of that, what are the other ideas that they could come up with? For Crownfall, you don't want it to feel like, okay, yeah, they're just going to try and go for one-sided Elsa. This is what we're going to do. We're just going to match them with the drafts to begin with and get Elsa ourselves and just biff them on it, frankly, right? Because some of these players are a lot more like experienced and Elsa is a very good character. I think it is just kind of like that. If there's a chance that they don't make playoffs, experiment with the draft and see what you can get away with and where those other win conditions could be from your team, because it's a very talented squad. You just got to make it different to other teams around you.
I mean, you think that they should start looking at the start of these matches. I think they should really look at the end of them, because the overtimes. Like, we talked about it in Midtown itself. Like, it hits overtime. It's like old school Citadel when they saw a strange portal. Just deer in the headlights. It feels like maybe the target calling is like a little bit off. Maybe the ult reading isn't quite there, but they fall apart in the overtime situations.
But someone who did not fall apart is going to be Ducky, as they are ready for their interview. For starters, what an incredible run this team has had through MRC, coming into the Ignite preseason, and you sit at the top of the table with Vision and Virtus Pro undefeated. How are you feeling?
I feel really good about it. I don't know, like in officials, like it's just a completely different game to when I'm playing scrims. I don't know why, but in officials, like I just feel like a different person, different player. I think I just love it. I love it so much.
So you've obviously got a little bit of experience when it comes to Ignite level play. We've had a couple people say that the competition feels a little bit closer so far this season than it has to potentially last year. Do you agree with that?
To be honest, I would say there's like 5 teams that sit at the top, or 6, which would be us, Shikigami, Heretics, Navi, VP. Those are the teams I think are like close to each other, and then every other team is kind of like, they're like, okay, they have like a chance to stick out maybe and like make an upset, but it's just like, it's really going to be really hard for them, I think.
So talk to us a little bit about how you get to play the Groot in comparison to the Dive and then to the Brawl, because what we saw with how you were playing Groot on Krakoa was wildly different to how you were playing it on Midtown.
I mean, it does really depend what you're playing against, and also like what you're playing for as a team. So on Midtown, we're obviously running like triple support and running like super high sustain on the defense at least. So I'm basically just playing really defensive with my walls, and then on Krakoa, we wasn't playing for sustain at all. We was kind of just playing to like make a turn. So as soon as I saw the wall views grab or something like that, like an important cooldown, I just basically yell at my team to run in behind me, and then we just like hopefully kill something. But you know, yeah, that's basically it.
Send it as fast as you can. There were a couple of moments on Midtown where you jumped off of a point right at the end of your attack and then off first. Like, there was so many walls from both sides. Like, what actually was like happening there? Was it just a mistake? Was it a good play from Crownfall that forced you off? Like, in the chaos from your POV as the Groot, what was going on?
I mean, for the defense on like literally as soon as they walked out of spawn doors, right? There's just so much pressure coming in, and like we knew we wasn't gonna be able to sustain it. So we didn't have a plan on where to kite at the time, which was bad. But then we all made the split decision cool to say play ambulance. We all ran through. We just played ambulance because we're obviously not gonna be able to sustain that. And what you want to do with these like really high sustain comps is just get your ults, and you want to play for ults, and then you just keep rezzing and rezzing. Like the whole defense, there was like basically a res every fight, like 1 or 2 rezzes. It was crazy. The comms are really high energy because it has to be in those kind of situations. But yeah.
Coming off that high energy, I hope you are excited for next week's worth of games. So we're going to let you go and get ready for those, but we've already mentioned earlier, some of those are going to be against either Vision or Virtus Pro. Do you have any message for them?
No, not really. I don't know. Maybe ban Groot.
Let your gameplay do the talking.
Yeah, pretty much. We'll win.
All right, thank you for joining us, Ducky. We'll let you go celebrate with your team. Keep that high energy rolling and get warmed up for the games next week. Once again, congratulations.
Thank you.